Hello, and your favourite political podcast, PolitiBabble, is back for yet another week, where this week it's all about the impending Chief Minister election and who will take charge of our island as part of our Manx MIni-series. I'm Archibald Elliott, and as usual, I'm joined by...
Oliver Sykes.
Yes, so now it comes the fun bit after we've had the House of Keys election, where we're all thinking who will run for Chief Minister, and then if who will run, who will actually go and get in. So yeah, that's kind of this week's episode topic. So Oliver, what are your initial thoughts on even just the role of Chief Minister?
Well, I believe the role includes sort of leading the government with the programme for government and sort of electing ministers and sort of guiding where we'll go over the next 5 years and sort of being the lead political representative of the Isle of Man on a international scale as well. I suppose over the past 5 years, the Chief Minister has been quite at the forefront of everything. We obviously had the likes of the press conferences and things like that. I mean, that was a completely different change. I know previous Chief Minister to Howard Quayle, Alan Bell was Chief Minister, and he took a slightly different scope in the way he provided himself to the media. But yeah, that's sort of, I'm going off there as usual. But that's sort of my thoughts on the Chief Minister leading the government, leading the programme and the way that we want to move over the next 5 years and trying to get things done with his ministers.
It's fascinating you mentioned leading the programme for government there, because I'm sure we've had many discussions with many people, and we're all unsure whether the rumours that the civil service starts writing the programme for government before the Chief Minister is elected, which is...
Well,
it seems plausible the way the civil service is going, but we don't know if that's actually true, and that's something which keeps on recurring almost as a theme there. Is it actually true that the civil service write the programme for government before? Do write in, let us know. Especially if you're a civil servant and you want to do some exposing, which can be totally confidential, I assure you. Yes, but that's a fascinating part. We've seen, I think, Isle of Man newspapers released something on their front page last week saying that I think it was it Alison or Cannon,
yes,
or Dewan or Chris. And then it got criticised heavily on Manx Twitter, which is heavily left-wing as well, to note, about there not being no women on the front page and no women of note there, which is interesting. There have been suggestions that I think Jane Paul Wilson could run for Chief Minister,
yes, yeah,
or Daphne Kane. They're the two being put forward on Manx Twitter. Of course, Manx Twitter is, again, remind you, not representative of the island's man's views. But it's interesting. Who do you think could be going to run? Obviously, I think Dewan's now elected Speaker, so he's probably out of the picture. But who do you think will be run?
Well, who knows? I mean, I've looked over sort of even on the lead up to the election, they were going for months about who could be Chief Minister as well, and that's obviously been sort of when they've been interviewing candidates who they might think or who they would want. And a lot of people have mentioned, like you said, Jane Paul Wilson, who's an MLC, is now MHK for Middle, or Daphne Kane. But I think it's going to have to be, a previous minister, someone with experience, and someone who was the Treasury Minister last time. It's probably going to be Alfred Cannon. I think so. It's more of a, I think that's what's going to happen. More of a, who would I want to be Chief Minister? I don't know. I'd have to probably say Jane Paul Wilson. I've heard a lot of candidates sort of say that she'd be a very, very good Chief Minister, and I believe with her experience in management and obviously previous Tynwald experience, I think she'd be good for the role. But I do equally think that Alfred is probably the most suitable candidate as well. There's time between them. So you've got the likes of Allinson there. I mean, who knows,
So your favourite would be Jane Paul Wilson?
Well, very close between her and Alfred Cannon. I don't know.
Any particular reason for either two?
Well, I think it'd be great to have a woman in post, mainly because I think she'd do a tremendous job. Not saying that a man couldn't do a tremendous job, but my reason for Alfred is probably his experience, and he's a very good speaker. So yeah.
Well, I'd say I agree with you on the case of Alfred. James Wilson's again a more than capable candidate in some
Absolutely.
regards. Although I think it is just personally in chief minister, I think it is better to have a ministerial experience to work out kind of the going ons of kind of civil service and what you have you
And
there,
Coleman as well,
and even
you know,
Coleman
yeah.
having that level of just interest. I think in maybe 5 years in the next election, he'll make a much even more capable candidate in that regard. I would say personally, to me, gender doesn't really come into play. It's looking at the candidates, irrespective of their gender, and then
Yes,
to me
of
that's
course,
not necessary.
But obviously,
so
we've never had a
important.
women. We've never had a woman.
You're implying most of people could run as chief minister at the same time there, Oliver.
I am indeed.
Well, as Jeff keeps on putting out, it's co-men, stressing, capitalising the men and lowercasing the CO. Obviously, that's Council of Ministers, which is our equivalent to cabinet. But I think Alf Cannon is definitely, I'd say I'd say he's my bet of who will get in, or at least who I would think would make the best chief minister out of them. He seems to be quite reserved on the fiscal front. He seems to have quite good policy overall and quite intelligent. So I think he'll make a good shot for the job.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously Allinson's and so on running quite close by. Interestingly, on Manx, I keep on mentioning Manx. It's becoming my new reference sources rather than academic literature. But
however reputable the sources,
exactly.
We don't
know.
But
interesting point made was that Allinson lost electorate vote. He's now came second in Ramsey rather than first as he did in 2016.
I don't think
election,
he's as confident in himself now.
He may not be as confident, but equally, the electorate aren't as confident. So is that saying maybe he's not best suited for that role of chief minister, purely because he has lost some of the electoral confidence, although Alf Cannon has again maintained his very, very strong lead.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I think that's something to be looked at. Although we did see in middle, obviously last time, how Howard Quayle was still on the backbenches of Tynwald. It's weird in the Manx Parliament. Those who get first place in the constituency sit on the front benches. Those who got second sit on the back benches. They're not referred to as backbenches.
But surely, if you're on the backbench, you know, it's sort of like that more. You're more higher up. You know, it's like
front bench. I think.
Yeah.
I you know, ultimately
you can't look down on people.
One in the corner. Either Ledgecote, but then that's not in not in the lower house, but one in the corner places on the top back would be best suited for view, because you can see absolutely everyone.
And the people below you cannot see you at all.
Exactly.
They have to go like that.
They have to crane their necks. It's a power move, honestly.
But yeah, like you said, Howard is placed second, and obviously he was third ranked in the exit polls.
Yeah, but interestingly, they did used to have. Seating didn't used to be like that. They would have the ministers all in one place in a row, centre, front, like they have in the UK.
Oh,
both
really?
sides.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the case. Only
over here,
Over here, yeah. But they changed the seating at some point. It's quite interesting. So yeah, would you discount Allinson as a candidate, as a capable candidate in that?
Well,
regard?
obviously he's lost a considerable amount of votes compared to the 2016 general election. I'd feel that, you know, clearly the public don't have as much support for him. Obviously they clearly do, but I don't think he's going to be able to be chief minister in my personal point of view. I mean, a lot of the candidates have said, I think it'd be great if no, they didn't say that, sorry, I'll rephrase there. They've said, I want to hear the policy first before, whether it's it's not a popularity contest. It's not how much I like them. It's not, I think they'll be good at it for this, this, and this. For many people, it's, what are they wanting to do? Does it align with pretty much my, ideas? I will vote for them or I will not, Obviously, a lot of people were tied between Alfred and Howard Quayle last time.
I can see your point there, but do you not think maybe one of the newcomers who could throw a hat in the ring and shake things up with those who've had no parliamentary experience before and throw them into the job, either ministerial or for our chief minister?
Well, I can probably see a newcomer definitely being a minister. There'll be at least one of them.
Any particular newcomers to politics in general? So obviously, I think James Wilson will be a capable minister, but we're looking at newcomers who've had no parliamentary.
Tynwald experience.
Yes, indeed.
No parliament. I'm trying to think.
It's a hard question, I must say.
It is a hard question. I don't know. I don't know really particularly. It depends on depends on the chief minister and who they want in their club. I don't know.
Well, yeah, one of the MHKs I think has been speaking some sense. We're hearing them on our early release version of Agenda, because they're recording in the studio behind us, was Stu Peters. He does seem. What are your thoughts on? He's been elected now, and he does seem to be keeping that consistent message of we need common sense in government.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he's stated that he doesn't want to be a part of anything. Basically, he just wants to be a shotgun. On the sides.
But if you think about it, being part of something, if you were to lead something, you can control more policy then. If you're sitting
definitely.
on the outside firing the shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's sort of called for. He doesn't want to be a part of a department, or maybe he might be on committee. He might be on. I imagine he'll be on some sort of committees, because you can't really get away with not doing anything. I don't think he'll. I think that the way he's coming from is going to be a good way to get that the common sense and sort of urging that. I mean, a lot of people said he's most likely going to be that good lone voice for the 1 out of 24. It's probably a good thing to have. But I can't see him being a part of the government.
Well, I suppose he has expressly stated he doesn't want to be. But it's been interesting. You had some thoughts you shared on Manx Twitter, my favourite go-to episode this week, of your own constituency. Have you had many more thoughts on your MHK so far?
Well, obviously, Michelle Haywood is one of my MHKs. I don't know where she will fit into this government. I could see her potentially going into DEFA, or I'm not sure where else. She's got experience of having a business herself. Obviously, June's now taken up the role of Speaker. So, obviously, he has got great parliamentary experience. So, I'm sure that will benefit the Chamber immensely, because he's had the role for the last 5 years.
Indeed.
And, he's going to be probably leading, chairing the Public Accounts Committee again. It's going to be great to have him, in the position that he's in. Because he's had the experience, he knows the standing orders inside and out. He knows what he's doing, so he can sort of lift off in that point. And like he said in his speech yesterday, I'm here to help and guide the members and really get us started. Obviously, a lot of new members again, and this is what a lot of the politicians last time were saying, who were potentially ministers, is experience. I've got the experience, but we cannot go on forever with experience. We need fresh blood in there, and I think Dewan's going to do a great job in lifting us back off where we are, because he's now Speaker again, so that's going to be great. Obviously, he's not going to be asking questions in the House of Keys or being able to vote on anything in the House of Keys, but I'm sure he'll do lots of great work outside of that, as he has done for the past 15 years. So your predictions are overall for Chief Minister. I'm going to go with, I think, Alf Cannon. I think is going to be my straw poll bet. Where are you coming in on that? Alf Cannon.
Oh, we can't do any betting here, unfortunately, because we've done the same candidate. So I suppose we put into a pot, and whoever wins, we get the money, and whoever loses, we also get the money. So it's a win-win betting situation there. Not that we endorse betting, of course, and we're not licensed under the Financial Conduct Agency for any gambling sorts of things, as you'll usually hear on most podcasts who mention it. But it's certainly going to be an interesting Chief Minister election. We're yet to see any candidates formally declare, but obviously we had Allinson and Alf Cannon both saying they wouldn't turn down the opportunity, which does imply in the political terminology that they're standing. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Well, it will be interesting. Any other ways in which you'll see people fall in as ministers? I definitely imagine that David Ashford will be back in health. I can't really.
It depends who's Chief Minister. It all depends who's Chief Minister.
Yeah. I couldn't see him moving anywhere.
I could see Allinson going back in. To somewhere, slotting in somewhere. He's done a good role so far. Maybe I wonder if he will be given the poison chalice of infrastructure or the Department of Incompetence. That shall certainly be an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not entirely sure. I could see Laurie Hooper going into the Department for Enterprise. Claire Christian, maybe,
I don't think anyone wants to take on the Department of Infrastructure overall. Obviously, unfortunately...
I was referring to the Enterprise back there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but infrastructure...
Unfortunately,
Jason Morehouse, maybe?
Unfortunately, Tim Baker's left the joyous parliamentary scene, so we can't be seeing him take up that role anytime soon. Jason, I think he may be of interest there in infrastructure. But again, it is that kind of poison chalice that no one particularly wants to take up. So it's definitely a hard role to play, and a hard one to persuade any current sitting members to actually go into infrastructure. It's gonna be a hard one to sell, because it's not like they offer a massive pay increase for becoming the member of the department everyone hates.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just have to say, look. I'm willing to go into infrastructure if we can get, a big structural change.
Or maybe one of the ones who wants to retire at the end of this term will say, I'll take that role with the extra pay. What a shame.
Yeah, I mean, they'll get us, like any other minister. The other 4 ministers are currently getting a 6-month payout, so it's great.
Well, yeah, that's because they stood for election again, so they should stand for election if they don't want to get in. Yeah, and then, yes, they do get a payout, indeed. Indeed. So, yes. Any other thoughts on Coman, Oliver?
Who have we got that could be potentially going back in? Education.
Education. As the famous words of Tony Blair
I'm just trying to think of any other MHKs. So you've got Rob Callister's definitely said he wants to get into the Coman. Claire Christian definitely wants a place in Coman.
But I'm trying to think will they get into Coman? That's the interesting part.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other Treasury. Who's going to be the man down from the big boss?
Oh, well, if Alf Cannon takes top spot, he might take himself as Treasury Minister, and it would certainly be good, because he's done a good job currently.
He has,
managing. But apart from the overspending, that was due to COVID, which was unfortunately unavoidable. He's managed to avoid a tax rise, which is always commendable.
And obviously these major projects, which are just ridiculous.
He's managed to finance them, though, which is impressive. Impressive.
And he did, and he had a sort of he was very, very good how he had when he picked his 2 departmental members. He had a left wing and a right wing person, which was really good.
It shall certainly be of interest. But we mentioned education there, and I suppose it's going slightly off tangent. But
no,
we had the Labour Party conference yesterday, with Keir Starmer going in with a beat headline of education, and he's saying, I won't reiterate the former... He's basically very praising Tony Blair a lot in the policy, which is quite interesting, because as party, he's created a lot of divide, and we're quite lucky in that regard. We don't necessarily see this in Manx politics, because they're independents, so they don't create a divide necessarily within the party. I say that, but obviously 3 members of the current House of Keys are party members, but generally we're independent politics. So it's really interesting, that split there, and I'm sure we'll come into that later in our current affairs part. But yeah, it's interesting how education does seem to be something quite key, as mentioned in most jurisdictions.
Yeah, it is. They always come back to that, and you see it in the manifestos this time round. And you had that. You went to that meeting, didn't you?
Yes, the NHAT.
Yes. They've been pushing for that. Wanting the candidates to pledge allegiance or whatever.
Oh, it's like the Americans pledging allegiance to the flag. You must pledge allegiance to our unions. I'm surprised they didn't have a national anthem and force everyone to stand up in schools yet. But we'll bear wait and see, I suppose. We'll bear wait and see. But it does move us nicely on to our current affairs for Manx politics.
Indeed. So this week's current affairs. Here we go. A tribunal hearing told medical director dismissed into inferior role. Returning speaker's voice will be heard. 12-year-old boy questioned over hoax bomb call to school. New Lieutenant Governor to be sworn in, or has been sworn in, may I add. And Tynwald sits to approve COVID measures. Female MHKs elected on their own merits, says former Chief Minister. More on the female MHKs there. And finally, I've gone over time again. I always do that. COVID still present clear. COVID still presents clear and present danger. I'm awful today, Archie. I do have to say.
I know we'll have to dock your pay there, or to dock it.
May I apologise? I was stumbling over my own words. It must be to the fact that I've got a wireless mouse now. Everyone you see on the camera.
You see, it's affecting the 5G chip, the vaccine implemented in him.
Yeah, the scrolling's
yes.
obviously affecting my vision. But yeah. So we'll go back to the first headline, which I read, which I found very interesting this week, as we currently had the health minister, which we saw on our way in, disputing about a Manx radio reporting about a month ago about the medical director being dismissed. Now we hear that a tribunal hearing has been told that the medical director was dismissed into an inferior role, and the full tribunal is going to occur in 2022.
But interestingly, the department still say that she, Dr. Rosalind, I can't remember her last name. I want to say Rosalind Franklin.
Ranson.
It's Ranson. Franklin. Rosalind Franklin.
She was a key member of the
advisory
at the start of COVID, and that was because the Public Health Directorate was actually away.
Yeah, but
interestingly,
the department still say that she's still in place in her executive role as medical director. So,
although she's been removed from her office, allegedly, says her legal team,
with her phone taken away.
Yeah, which I think is absolutely outrageous.
But the thing is, we never know really what's quite true in Isle of Man government, because there's no real transparency or accountability there with what is happening. We don't know. I think that's quite simple to say. We don't know.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Yeah, we don't know. So, yeah, who knows what they've been saying? Because we never know. It's like Lettergate. I saw someone sort of comments about, here we go, Lettergate, and now what else was there? No minutes taking.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Who knows? Lettergate was something quite fabulous, really. He destroyed a letter which was, maybe not best to be destroyed. What was else that was on our news this week?
Well, we had the Lieutenant Governor being sworn in as well, which was interesting.
I was driving yesterday to come into Douglas, and I was trying to get out, obviously, through Castle. I was trying to go through Castletown Square, and unfortunately, the road was closed, so that I wasn't able to get through, and I had to turn around and do a 3-point turn and everything. So yeah, it was quite interesting. Yeah,
that's quite.
You seem to be feeling something of mass amusement here, Oliver. It's quite entertaining on my end, because I have no idea what you're amused about. So yes,
I'm just also looking at a photo of the Lieutenant Governor here, who had a massive.
The plume on his
I
hat,
thought that's quite
yes.
quite an people were commenting, what are these people in Castletown doing, wandering around with these fancy costumes on, and
they're hardly costumes, they're uniforms. These people just need to know the proper terminology. Yes, but it's certainly been interesting, I suppose.
Yes, so I just wait for my thing to reload again. Wi-Fi being very slow.
Technical difficulties, please bear with.
I'm just trying to recall what I've been talking about.
You've been talking, Oliver? Oh,
yes,
news to me.
There's been a hoax.
Hoax bomb. Hoax call to Williston School.
Yeah.
And it's a 12-year-old, so it did pose, I think, my through my thought process when it was a 12-year-old, I thought it does seem to be, it's a matter of they just thought maybe they were doing a joke, and obviously online gaming has massively. I'm going to be one of these baby boomers who's always banging on about how online violence is causing real violence, but I think it does stray in a major point. We do see kind of these new threats of violence, of bomb threats, becoming trivialized through kind of online gaming and through that interaction, and that side of humans being increased, which is something quite dangerous at an early age.
Yeah.
Before they actually realise the implication of their actions.
I imagine that this boy's a resident on the Isle of Man.
Oh, and they are though, because they're taking them for questioning. So
yeah,
yes.
And not only that, they won't be at that primary school. They might have gone there, but they'll be in high school. I'm just making some observations there, like I usually do.
Unfortunately, we're not crime experts. Not enough has been released to have a full comment on that news story.
Yeah. So, COVID. I always get COVID in there, don't I? I like to get it in.
Not again.
So Tynwald's extended some COVID measures and COVID's. So we'll just talk about COVID. Is the health minister saying still presents a clear and present danger? Who knows where we're going to go this winter? You know, they always talk about the winter spikes.
Oliver, driving still presents a very clear and dangerous threat. We see lots of things already. Going in an aeroplane still kind of conveys a very serious threat. We see crime still conveys a serious threat. The serious threat analogy has become, I'd argue, more trivialised. As in Ireland, we have very, very high vaccination rates. We've not really had a death increase. Those that died is very unfortunate.
In
but
Ireland?
Again, just hit on Ireland.
Oh, I thought you meant on Ireland. I thought
no, I'm not talking about Irish domestic policy. So yeah, it is. I'd say not such a serious threat anymore. We already see the flu each year has the same impact now as I say COVID really has on Ireland. So we need to learn.
There was no flu on Ireland last year, Archie. Not a single case of flu.
Oh dear.
That's what Dr. Allenson was saying.
I'll point that out as utterly ridiculous. You cannot say with certainty that there was not a single case of flu last year.
Well, he said there was hardly any flu. Maybe I should turn that into not a single case, but there was hardly any flu.
Yes, but those
year.
who probably caught the flu probably also caught COVID.
Yeah.
So the differentiation between the two is not so clear. But again, we need to learn to live with it. We can't be saying, well, everything on our lives needs to revolve around COVID. We need to learn to live with this virus and kind of continue on our daily lives as we move back to the new normal, as they call it. Because we are vaccinated, we are already protecting the vulnerable. That has been done. It has been completed. It's been achieved. And we saw today the ending of furlough in the UK. And we're seeing more things return to normal, which is good to see, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. So that's sort of the roundup of this week's news. It's been quite a busy one. Well, it's nearly been a week. Yeah, it is a week since the election took place. So a lot of moving forward, and well, we'll see where it takes us. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks, I do have to say. I mean, it's always interesting.
Well, yes. Well, in the UK news, on the other hand, we've seen. Just in international news, we obviously saw Greta Thunberg giving her blah 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 speech, which I thought was quite powerful. We'll move on to that later. So we had Greta Thunberg with her blah blah blah, which was rather good. We had then obviously Boris Johnson addressing the UN. Which was interesting. We had all the world leaders addressing the UN in the past week to the General Assembly, as they do get trying on a yearly basis. And obviously we had the Labour Party conference and some quite interesting zingers thrown at the Tories by a certain Angela Rayner in a fringe event. And obviously we had who was forgetting the name? He's so forgettable. Keir Starmer. We had his keynote speech in his first in-person speech to the Labour Party conference. And then we've obviously seen the fuel crisis hit the UK, which has been rather a strain on the economy. Obviously, we've seen army drivers going to be drafted in the coming days to just ease the pressure just in case, although the pressure is already easing. So I'll start with the first one there, the blah 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 speech from Greta Thunberg. It was quite a powerful. Did you manage to catch it, Oliver?
I've watched a little clip which was blah blah blah. Yeah, it was great. It was quite interesting. She's quite.
Yeah, it was a youth climate summit in Milan. Sorry. So she's giving an example. I'll quote her here. We can no longer let the people in power decide what hope is. Hope is not passive. Hope is not blah, blah, blah. We must find a smooth transition towards a low-carbon economy. There's no planet B, and this was in reference to a speech given by Emmanuel Macron. There is no planet blah, 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 which I thought is quite key here. This is not about some expensive, politically correct dream at the bunny hugging or blah, blah, blah. Build back better, blah, 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 green economy. economy, blah, blah, blah. Net zero, blah, blah, blah. Climate neutral, blah, blah, blah. This is all we hear from our so-called leaders. Words that sound great, but so far has led to no action or hopes and dreams. Empty words and promises. I thought I did agree with quite a lot what she's saying there. We have seen kind of a lack of action in this regard. What she was asking for more like a... what she wants from it is a different solution to what I seek, but the same message is key there. It is almost all these words are just rhetoric being spouted by the world leaders at this current time, but we haven't actually seen any concrete policy. It is blah blah blah. To be quite frank,
it absolutely is. So, if you were a world leader right now, Archie, what would you do?
What would I do? Well, I'd start working immediately with business. I'd personally move forward our carbon neutrality date to 2035 because that immediately starts to set that ball in rolling, and then you'd have the cabinet, you'd have the civil service. Obviously, they'd draw up all the plans which weren't drawn up for 2035, they're drawn up 2050, and those can be adapted. We could see a massive increase in the green technology sector. We can look at encouraging the private sector to increase their investment and kind of encouraging the startups to move in the green technology sector. And then we could obviously see the mass increase of green kind of technology in wind turbines, etc., being implemented, and that could be led from a government-led policy on kind of incentivizing public companies and private sector to go and do that on tenders, which would be, I suppose, very good. And we can look at those market based solutions for climate change, which I'm so keen about. But even the UK PM said, I think today, the youth have every right to be angry. This was at a pre-COP 26 meeting, which Boris Johnson addressed virtually. He told climate activists in Milan about this, and he did make a good statement here that we were paying the price for the reckless actions of their elders. Boris is renowned for his exuberant language in that regard, which does make him interesting to listen to, I must say. So yeah, the mocking the climate promises on blah 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 is very good, and we already have the solutions here. We need to bring forward the rate that these solutions are implemented. And the scientists already have the solutions which you can go and implement. The policy is already there. It just needs to be taken an initiative.
It just needs to be fulfilled.
It just needs to be put into place. It's just sitting there dormant and being waited to be implemented somewhere far in the distant future. But it needs to be brought forward to now, I'd say, is a key message there. But then we saw, obviously, Boris's address to the UN. Did you manage to catch any of that?
Sadly, one did not.
Oh no!
I need to go look back upon it, but I didn't manage to get any. I did hear that he made some I heard he made some reference to, was it Kermit the Frog?
Yes, yeah. I can't remember exactly what that reference was, but it was rather funny. He's again renowned for his exuberant stylistic features, but he was talking a lot about the kind of that we're nearing the adolescent phase of humans' evolutionary lifespan. He referred quite a lot to the November COP Conference of Parties 26 UN Climate Conference, which is in November, and he did focus a lot on building back better, building with a green economy, and looking at kind of putting climate change at the forefront, which was something that's quite interesting to see. And hopefully he does actually take action behind the rhetoric. That's the most important part, taking action there. Behind that rhetoric, we saw the Labour conference. Not sure if you caught any of that. I was listening to last night as I was coming back from a brilliant performance of Karima Burana. I can't pronounce the first one. It's something Latin, I think. From the Isle of Man Symphony Orchestra, done in conjunction with the Choral Society for the 50th anniversary. It was very good. I was coming back. I was listening to some of the analysis done on the 10 o'clock news on the Labour Party conference. They had Alistair Campbell, the former head of communications under Tony Blair, on, and also Owen Jones, a Guardian columnist, which I'm sure you've come across before. So one of the key points which was mentioned was obviously Angela Rayner's all Tories are Tories are just homophobic, racist scum, an Etonian, something else. Gave me lots of derogatory language there. What did you think about that?
Well, I thought it was interesting because I think it was some point in 2019, I think, she said we need to look to a more kinder, polite politics and move away from this sort of shouting from the sidelines.
And being insulting each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was watching a video not too long ago, and it featured her on the front benches, and it featured a Conservative MP, I'm pretty sure. And she used that word in Parliament as this Conservative MP, I think, was speaking, and she just said it sort of under her breath, and the Deputy Speaker took over, and she was not happy at all, which clearly is totally unparliamentary. And she said, we will not hear words like that, especially from the front benches. So it shows that idea that, clearly it's not acceptable parliamentary language, so clearly it's not acceptable political language. And the fact that, she is the deputy leader of the Labour Party and herself has indicated that we need to look to a more kinder politics. I think that's not the way forward at all, really. I thought it was completely sort of not the right thing to say. Now, we've heard many people of the sort of left-wing view that they think that we hear a lot about Tories talking about freedom of sorry,
I'm also having a lot of chair problems at the same time.
Archie's been having chair problems in the studio. I then try to mimic a left-wing voice, and I get Archie's sort of grimace towards me. But I'll carry on. Carry on
in that vein. Yes.
We hear a lot of people of the left-wing view say, Tories banging on about free speech all the time, and finally, when we say something that we think is correct, they shut us. They're the first ones to shut us down. So it's sort of that idea that yes, of course, freedom of speech, I completely support that, but when it's quite rude and offensive, although people say, well, surely that's what free speech is. I mean, Archie, do you want to come in here?
I'd say absolutely, that is exactly what free speech is. Freedom of speech is the freedom to the right to offend. But I would say I would have no problem in general with your average Joe Blogg saying it. I would obviously disagree with them, and I have challenged them on that view, but they have absolutely every right to say it. But when it's coming, I'd say, from a deputy leader of a major party, who's there to set an example for their members, and is there calling out the year before for a kinder politics, then yes, I will criticise that use of language, because they're at both being extremely hypocritical to what they've said and what they've called for in a more kinder, more kind of compassionate politics, and they're not exactly setting the best example for if they were to become kind of deputy prime minister of the UK, or even if they were to progress to leadership of the party, becoming prime minister of the UK, calling your other opponents scum. It's not exactly the best political move, and nor is the politest thing to do at all, almost courteous. So I'd say that's on the front. I challenge them. I do find your left-wing impression very, very, very amusing, and it is obviously, I'd say, you'll get someone eventually come back saying, not all lefties sound like that.
Yes, may I just apologise in advance on that, completely.
Freedom of speech is the right to offend, Oliver. Yes, but I have been having some quite interesting chair problems. My chair's trying to throw me forwards, and I'm not exactly sure how to fix it. I've tried and failed on that regard, just like the Labour Party has for the past 3 elections. But obviously we saw Keir Starmer's keynote speech. If you haven't caught any of that, although I'm not quite sure, but he did. Definitely, he's kind of banging on a lot about Blairite policy.
Blair.
Blair. Yes, not the blah, blah, blah. It's the Blair. The education, as he kept on saying. That was a great reference there, Oliver, I must say. I do commend it. But yes, the Blair speech. It was all banging on about kind of Blair and how we return to the previous time we were in government. Look at what we're doing, levelling up. This is what the Tories should be doing. But then you look at it, he was saying all about these low employment, etc., etc., etc. But you can point to this time, well, no, there's lower unemployment, there's more people in work, there's a lot more benefits, and it's not necessarily directly comparable, so we can't compare that. But then we also saw him talk about, he actually mentioned in an interview a couple of days before, that he was not care. He didn't care if he divided the party. It was more about winning the election. But he is almost putting the party at a very big divide.
Yeah.
Because he has almost alienated the left-wing socialist aspect of the party in favour of his more centrist approach, which, when you're leading a party that is majority socialist now, is not necessarily the best way forwards of encouraging your party members, and he's not there to inspire. He got a lot of heckles, which is hardly surprising in that regard. But interestingly, what was it? I was watching something else on Twitter of a young Labour Party member addressed a conference, and he addressed them all as comrades. They were very socialist, and he was calling out all of these Tory. It's the same vein as Angela Rayner in different words, really. And it was almost about we need a socialist Green New Deal. His deal. He's like saying we need an upheaval, revolution. It's quite
condescending,
and aggressive, I'd say. But it didn't. The part which is the juxtaposition is it's not like he's a esteemed or kind of really well-respected general in a communist nation, or like USSR general, a Chinese general, a North Korean general, a leader or head person. He's a 19-year-old person. Oh, I can't assume gender nowadays, so I have to say person for that regard.
Fair enough.
Basically, saying he's addressing like comrade. Is not. I wouldn't say the language is necessarily fitting to the society we live in. It's reading the room and seeing. Yes, you may. It's not going to inspire those, especially to my political persuasion, or your average Joe Bloggs in the UK does not want to be called a comrade. So we saw a similar vein in John Bercow, the person who was paid to endorse James Cherry on John Bercow to Labour conference, because obviously he moved parties, saying comrades. So it's an interesting how they're using this very much communist terminology. What do you think on that regard?
I think it's interesting. I suppose it's the
diplomatic response.
Yeah, of course. But the way in which you address people and engage them is an interesting way. And the way these party conferences are really key, aren't they? Because it's a way in which you can sort of fuel the people that they're going to be your members. And I'm not entirely sure. Really.
Well,
that note.
give it a watch. I recommend. It was quite entertaining. I'll send you the tweet later.
Excellent.
And obviously, we had then the fuel crisis in the UK, where they had a 500.
Everyone thinks it's the fuel. It's not the fuel. It's the drivers.
It's basically. I'll start off from the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
So there was a few petrol stations closed due to a driver shortage, and they were going to go back open. They just ran out of fuel. Then the papers sparked saying, we don't need to panic. There's plenty of fuel. No need to panic buy. Basically,
panic makes people panic.
Basically, it's, to phrase it how they phrased it, no need to panic buy. Basically, was the phrase. So
you know this on the Isle of Man with the COVID. I mean,
exactly, even
everywhere.
in the UK with toilet roll. It's happened. They say, don't panic. Don't panic buy! That's basically the phrase they give. So then we saw a 500% increase in sales on forecourts at the weekend, and massive queues outside these forecourts. So it was a self-created crisis, really.
Yeah.
So I managed to get fuel fine yesterday because on Isle of Man we're not affected because we haven't had our papers and our news Max Radio saying don't panic buy. So yes, it's been rather peaceful over here, but it's been quite some shocking scenes in the UK in regards to their fuel. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning, really. Obviously, you had the whole thing with Brexit. I remember someone saying to me, yes, my mother, she's filled her shed with tinned cans and things that won't go out of date very easily because she was so worried about what Brexit might bring, and people thought Brexit would be the end of everything.
And it's not
been the end of everything. But yeah, these events is a bit like COVID. People were stockpiling and making sure that they had enough of everything, which is quite concerning.
Yes, indeed.
That people don't,
They don't think
living on an island. Everyone goes, "Oh yeah," but we've got our own bakery, we've got our own, flour mills.
We don't have our own fuel supply.
But the thing is, we don't have,
most things. Which
packaging. Where are we going to get our packaging from? Nowhere over here does, So it's great that we've got, for example, Gelling's eggs. It's great that we've got No Bakehouse and Laxey Flour Mill and all these other great establishments. Any other establishments on the Isle of Man that do a very similar thing are available. But, where's our packaging? Where are we going to be able to do this? If we can't get that from the UK, we're a bit sort of screwed.
China.
Well, who knows?
With the Belt and Road Initiative, I'm sure we'll be seeing some encroachments in the not-so-distant future.
But it is concerning, these sort of types of events that happen, and panic buying. It's that sort of, people are greedy these days.
Yes.
People are, don't think for others.
But
And
you see,
think
what I suggest is just panic buy all the time, and then it's not panic buying, it's normal buying. the perfect solution there. Not that I condone that sort of behaviour. But yeah, that kind of wraps up the news from this week.
Yeah, it's been an
quite
interesting one.
Well,
It's always interesting.
I'll leave you to correct the record that you got. You got called a Tory apparently, which I found quite entertaining when you declared yourself as not a Tory.
I have to explain to people.
Yes.
On the political compass test, I identify as a social libertarian, and I've completed that test twice, and I've pretty much ended up in very similar positions, which is just centre of the middle. Just left of the middle. Which is fair enough. Sometimes,
fair.
Sometimes my views are sort of right wing. Sometimes
that's where
my
it balances
views are
out
left
to
wing.
centre.
So
exactly.
there we go.
Yeah.
But I've had a few. I had a few comments, and I've heard on the grapevine you're a Tory. I have moved to a new school, by the way. So I used to get it called at my last school. I remember in my RE class, I said that capital punishment would be a great thing for some of the the most
encouraging that now
of the most horrific crimes. Do you agree on that, Archie?
I'll give no comment to that.
If someone if someone committed an awful crime, anyway, my beliefs might have changed since then. That was my belief as of a while ago. Your beliefs can change.
Indeed.
Someone could be a Tory yesterday. Some days, you've got the likes of John Burkham.
Yes.
Anyway, so moving on to that, someone just went, "You're a Tory," and
typical left-wing impression there.
So at my new school, someone turns around to me and goes, "God, you look like a Tory," and I say, "What?"
Yeah.
And I actually feel quite complimented sometimes when people say that.
It
usually means you're well dressed and well
exactly.
presented, because people have this connotation, which is, you dress smart, you look like a Tory.
Exactly. It's the true. It's the highest form of compliment.
And I've had a lot of you're very posh, and I go, oh, do I?
Yes,
I just say no. I'm well spoken. I don't say I'm posh or well spoken.
I get that. Oh, you're a Tory. Then I can't actually go you and say no, I'm not. I actually have to say yes, I am.
Yeah, but I do.
It's wonder how they assume.
Yes, I do identify as pretty. I'd say a centrist. A centrist. So yeah.
Well, our two former members of the podcast, Sam and Brescia, would murder you for saying that. So yeah. So we're not exactly murdered.
But I'm that little bit closer to being left wing.
It's in the figurative sense of murder to avoid a libel suit. But yes, they very dislike centrists for some reason, which I really don't understand. But that does conclude this week's wonderful podcast. It's PolitiBabble. So yeah.
Goodbye, everyone. You've been PolitiBabble.
We do hope you've enjoyed. And as usual, you can find our wonderful election special from last week talking about through all of the candidates in all of the constituencies and many more electoral issues on manxradio.com/PolitiBabble manxradio.com/podcasts/PolitiBabble. That is manxradio.com/podcasts/PolitiBabble. As usual, you can write into us, message us, or tweet us on all social media at PolitiBabble. That's PolitiBabble. Exactly, at PolitiBabble. Or email us at PolitiBabble@gmail.com.
You've been PolitiBabble.
Again.